Good afternoon. This is the Democratic Alliance Labour Report, Friday the 21st July 23. Thank you for tuning in. If you're happy with this, if you think it's interesting, please let us have some feedback and also send it to family, friends and business associates. It's the Labour Report. I'm going to report on a couple of issues. Obviously the explosion in Bree Street and how it affects business and what's happened. The second thing is the compensation fund and its non-submission of the annual reports are still being debated. There was a jaunt to Geneva, to the International Labour Organization by the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. No one knew about it, but off she went on the jaunt. The road freight industry, and you've all heard about the attacks on trucks, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, it'll be an interesting topic as well. The Department of Social Development report, the Department of Labour was supposed to provide input and they just didn't do it. Another interesting thing, Minister Zikalala of the Public Works, at his budget debate, it came out now that he spent 132,000 Rand on a party after his budget debate, and the DA had to obviously boycott that. I mean, it sounds ridiculous when in fact we've got real problems with public works. The Minister of Labour has still not withdrawn his pernicious, ridiculous regulations to the equity legislation, the amendment. And of course, jobs are still not being created and government's giving no help. So thank you for listening to me. It's Michael Bagram, Member of Parliament for the Democratic Alliance and the Labour spokesperson. Well, let's just quickly talk about the explosion in Bree Street. Well, of course, no one knows what the issue was. I don't know if we'll ever find out. It'll be something that somehow doesn't get investigated, doesn't get properly done. But of course, the business in that area has come to a standstill. People are not working at the moment. People are not getting paid. So you can imagine what it's done. This is in the very center of Bree Street in Johannesburg. But what I found also interesting is that the CCMA head office, the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration head office, has closed because they're worried about the safety of patrons and staff. Now, the problem is, of course, that affects labour disputes across the country. We need to find out what the issue is, why the explosion happened, if it's going to happen again, and when can we open the CCMA again. They assure me they want to open up on Monday, but let's watch that space. Now, the compensation fund. The compensation fund has been useless for over 20 years. The problem we've got is that they didn't even submit annual reports this year for their budget. Now, we had a meeting with them, with the minister, and still we can't get proper answers as to why it wasn't done. So as the Democratic Alliance, we are holding them to account. We're going to have to challenge them. We are challenging them. We've had the first meeting. We're going to watch this like a hawk, but the compensation fund can't carry on this way. The sooner we get a change of government, the better. Hopefully this time next year we'll have a new government in place and we won't have this problem with the compensation fund. The next issue is a jaunt to Geneva. Now, this government is effectively bankrupt. Most of the money's been stolen. Most of it has been wasted. We have government officials that are spending money like water, and yet at the end of the day, they decide they're going to go on a jaunt to Geneva, to the International Labour Organization. Well, I put a question to the minister, how much it cost, who went, why wasn't the Portfolio Committee informed? They've always been informed in the past. We know that the chair lady of the Portfolio Committee went. We don't know who else went. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. But you can imagine the thousands and thousands of rands that were spent on this jaunt to Geneva. It is ridiculous. Of course, the minister fiddles while South Africa burns. It's really terrible. The road freight industry. It's another big industry that creates employment in South Africa, but there are a lot of foreign drivers. And of course, what's happening is these trucks are being attacked and burnt. Now, we don't really know, we can't get to the bottom of what it is, and government somehow is doing nothing about it. When you drive on the highways, the national roads, you see burnt out shells of trucks all over the place. This has created a problem. We don't have railways, so you can imagine what this is doing to business. You don't have a railway that can carry the stock or the goods, either finished or raw material. And now we're getting trucks being threatened. And of course, only people willing to drive these trucks are foreigners. And I suspect it's locals who are attacking these trucks because they don't want foreigners to drive the trucks. So we've got a real problem with employment in South Africa, and yet everyone's fighting with each other. So the road freight industry is under threat, major threat. The Department of Social Development, they put out a report. The Department of Employment and Labour was supposed to comment on the report. So that's one department asking another department to comment, and the Department of Labour did nothing. Now it just shows you how dysfunctional our departments are. A Department of Labour who has a lot to say about everything, when they have to do it officially from another department, they just didn't do it. The minister's going to have to explain himself. Again, the Democratic Alliance is holding them to account, and we want to know what's going on. Well, at the end of the day, the Minister of Employment and Labour has still not withdrawn his regulations. It's unbelievable. It's the Employment Equity Amendment Act. Those regulations are still discriminatory against coloureds and Indians, let alone whites. But the coloureds and Indians are really going to suffer. They are part of the big unemployment queue. As I've said in the past, that we have over 40% unemployment. These regulations are now driving unemployment higher and higher. So we can expect it much worse the next quarter. The Democratic Alliance is taking it to court. We're about to launch the application, and let's watch the space. So well done to the leader, John Steenhuisen, who's taking this issue really seriously. And in fact, the Democratic Alliance is going to have a march to Parliament to declare that the regulations like this discriminate against minorities in South Africa. Those minorities in particular are the coloureds and Indians. They're the ones who are going to be sucking the hind tip. They never get employment because the department is standing there in their way. And this message needs to go out to the coloured and Indian community, the coloured community in particular in Cape Town, and the Indian community in KwaZulu-Natal. They're going to suffer very badly from this. So let's watch that space as well. The Democratic Alliance is going to court. We'll report back on the court case. The Democratic Alliance has been unbelievably well established in the courts. We've just won that case against President Putin. The warrant of arrest has now been issued, despite the fact that he's saying he's not coming to South Africa. But you all remember the President Omar al-Bashir, who said he wasn't going to come and then pitched, and then they let him go without issuing a warrant for arrest, despite the fact that the Rome Convention said both these men need to be arrested. Putin would have been here, he would have come, and they would have said, "Oh, we're so sorry, we didn't know." The Democratic Alliance had to do that, and quite rightly so. So thank you for listening to me. It's Michael Bagram, Friday the 21st of July 23, the Democratic Alliance Labour spokesperson. Thank you.